This is Libby Road, Season 1, Episode 3. Very special edition of the Libby Road podcast today. The show where we talk to people about stuff. Today we're talking to cinematographer, videographer, and one of my favorite globetrotters, Rupert Wilde. Today we talk about tombstones, Kairos time, mindfulness, faith, practice, empathy, street epistemology, sincerity, and awareness.
Epistemology, Episcopalian epistemology.
Yeah, pretty close.
I don't know, there's got to be some way I can fucking remember. Epistemology.
Thanks so much for coming on the Libby Road podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Rupert Wilde. Why don't you tell us a couple of things about yourself that, just to kind of break the ice here. Tell us a couple things.
I like the Dr. Evil life line. The details of my life are quite inconsequential. And then he goes off and rattles on the details of it. What kind of thing would you like to know about me? Or what would be helpful to know about me?
What if you could, I don't know, tell us a tombstone of what you want written on it, so to speak. Tell us, like, if nobody knew you at all and they only had a few things to remember about you, what would be those things?
Wow. Yes, I kind of struggle with that, honestly, because I'm trying to embrace that it doesn't matter who I am. I'd like to tread lightly and be open and leave the place better than I found it. And I practice that at times, and I have not even considered it at times, and trod on everyone that I've come in contact with. So, yeah, I think I've left a trail of carnage behind me, not on purpose, and at times on purpose. And so I would hope someone would think back at me and think, at least he was curious about wanting to do things in a better way. But I think that curiosity and my assumption that everyone has it has ostracized me from a lot of people and made it so that being around me was off-putting or annoying or So I don't know if I know at 46 what my tombstone would say other than this cunt, I don't really want to. I think we'll get into some questions and I can talk about my strengths and I can talk about things I'm proud of that I've achieved and directions that I've looked or allowed myself to increase my awareness of so that I can have an easier time going through life and interacting with people and collaborating with people. I love collaborating with people, and I think that's always a goal for me, is collaboration. That's why I do the work I do now, and that's why music's always been such a big part of my life, and that's why team sports are not something I have any interest in, because that's competition versus collaboration. I don't know if I even came close to answering your fucking question. But I don't know what I would want on my tombstone. I think I would want it to just be blank. I don't think I would need or want, and I don't mean in some self-aggrandizing, I'm so fucking humble you don't even know. I just mean,
You said it didn't matter. It didn't matter who you are. Can you maybe go into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I don't think I care what it would say to me. I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter what's written on my tombstone. It really doesn't matter what. I mean, I think it's from a place of ego that we try and be remembered, that we try and, oh, I hope this and who gives a fuck? Who really gives a fuck at the end of the day? As long as we're being nice to each other, and as long as we can, you know, smile when we think about hanging out with someone, or help each other get through something, whether it's a project, moving house, building a fucking tree house. I think that's what matters, and I don't think you can put that on a tombstone. I think accomplishments get put on a tombstone, but I don't know that I really care about what accomplishments need to go on a tombstone.
Does this kind of go back to your collaboration versus competition
Yeah,
kind of mindset?
yeah. I think the headstone and the accolades are all quite competitive things, and you've got to step on people to get to a place of winning. And I really don't, from a guttural level, that's never really appealed to me. And then now, as I start to be a little bit more aware of the choices I'm making and make them a bit more mindfully, I just do not see me winning and someone else having to lose as a win, even if the person is an absolute insufferable cunt. I'd rather, yeah. I've really enjoyed changing my perspective to realize that we're all just living different versions of the same life, and that when I'm nice to you, I'm nice to me. When I'm horrible to you, I'm horrible to me, and vice versa. That you're just, you know, it's not about me if you're being a prick to me. It's just about what you're experiencing, what you're struggling through, and I really enjoy the feeling that remembering that brings me, versus forgetting that and getting wrapped up in, well, why do they think I'm a cunt? Why do they think I deserve to be treated this way? Why? And I think that comes from a place of collaboration and the sharing value that I talked to you about, versus competition.
Maybe I can put the question another way.
Sure.
Let's say years from now, a couple of your really close friends are sitting at a restaurant, and your name comes up, and one says, "Oh yeah, Rupert Wilde. That's the guy that." Maybe you can fill in the blank there. Like, how would you want your friends to remember you as? Not necessarily maybe on a tombstone, or accolades, or accomplishments, or anything necessarily ego-centric, but just how would you finish that sentence?
How
Rupert,
would I, or how would
him.
I want to?
I'm sorry.
Well, you said, I'm clarifying, how would I want that sentence to be finished, or how do I think it would be finished?
You can answer either one or both.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit ridiculous of me to try and go through the exercise of what would people say. I have no idea what people think of me. I imagine people don't think too highly of me, a lot of people, because I think I don't make it easy for people to hear what I have to say. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's my tone, if it's because I'm not from here. I'm not really from anywhere that I've lived since I was 11. And so I don't know if that automatically makes people feel adversarial. on some level they're not even aware of. You know, you talked about the racism thing, and you know, feeling like an outsider, feeling not welcome when those things happen, and I know what that feels like, you know. And so, and I do think I've got a resting bitch face, you know, even though I might be absolutely content and happy inside, my face might read a certain way that might be a little hard to approach, or I don't know what it is, but I've definitely seemed to bring out in some people challenges, and I think it's because I look for ways to improve myself so much, and I think I've taken the approach of offering my observations when they haven't been invited. And maybe that's a bit abrasive for people, rather than me just accepting them where they are. But I have no idea what people think of me. I try and ask, I try and be considerate of that. But I think how I would want people to answer that question is, I enjoyed hanging out with him. I enjoyed spending time with him. And I enjoy finding ways to better make that the answer, because it improves my quality of existence to be more enjoyable to be around. I'm talking quietly again, aren't I? Sorry. I think as I'm thinking, you know, I don't have an answer to these things. I haven't thought about these things in a little while, and so you kind of reflect and half think and half blah 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 and get your way to the answer. So
Yeah.
I'll stop talking.
So it sounds like it matters to you what other people think about you, but it's not something that you're necessarily attached to.
Yeah, I have no control over what other people think of me. Even when I try my damnedest, it seems to go worse sometimes when I'm trying harder to affect what people think of me. And so I think it just works better to just be authentic and raise my awareness of what's happening for me, and then make choices about who I spend time with, how I spend that time. Listening to that more than listening to how do I get these people to enjoy being around me. I don't know what makes people enjoy being around other people or being around me. And anytime I try and control that, it seems like it goes worse. It seems like it makes it more difficult. So to think about what would be on my tombstone, I think it doesn't matter. I think I don't care what's on my tombstone. It's really... it could be fucking anything. You know, you can edit a piece of footage to make someone sound like a complete twat, or like a genius, or like a hero, or like a coward. The same, you know, string of sentences can be edited in such a way to make someone, just as observing someone's life, depending on what way you're viewing it, or what pieces you're involved in and not involved in, people can seem any number of ways.
There's a lot of interpretation that goes into
Yeah.
somebody's opinion of something.
Yeah, and so I think the headstone and the what did you think of so and so, there's so much interpretation in that already that I think I'd rather it just be a feeling, and I think I'd rather it be a feeling of enjoyment or flow. There's this concept of flow that I was introduced to not so long ago, and it's like Kairos time, you know. That's where that band name came from. So Kairos time, there's two definitions of time in Greek, in the Greek language, or the ancient Greek language. There's chronos time, which is chronological time, like time on a clock, and you can measure it, 30 seconds, 20 years, and time passes in chronos time, you can measure it. But in Kairos time, you're in the middle of doing something and you're unaware of how much time has passed, and it can seem like, whoa, that's gone in an instant, or it can seem like, Jesus, hours are taking. Like people watch paint dry, it seems like hours. It's the same amount of chronos time, but in Kairos time, it's flexed in and out. There's not really that measurement. And so the concept of flow, similar to Kairos time, is when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you experience this sensation of flow, or you experience Kairos time, where you're doing something for 4 hours and I thought it was 20 minutes. I didn't realize, fuck me, it's 5 o'clock already. We experienced it yesterday when we were installing that pulley system, where 3 hours went by. I thought we were like 40 minutes into fannying around, but it turns out, shit, not only have we not eaten, but it's 3 hours have gone by. We got to stop and eat and get back to this. Because you just kind of get lost in what you're doing, and that's the flow, I think. And that feeling of being lost in what you're doing, if there was a way to put that on a tombstone, that's what I would want to put on a tombstone.
The concept of highway hypnosis kind of comes up as far as an example of maybe what Kairos time is, where you're driving and you get home and you realize when you get home you were somewhere else. You don't remember driving home.
Yeah.
Like, you made all the turns, you stopped at all the stop signs, but you somehow got from, say, work to home, and you were not there.
I think that could be a form of Kairos time, but I think that's more getting lost in your thoughts, lost in your imagination, and not being present. And I think Kairos time is more about being so present that chronological time doesn't matter anymore. I think what you're describing is the same thing that happens when you sit down and read, which is a form of flow, or when you watch a film where time passes and you really aren't aware of it passing. Like I haven't heard that term, highway hypnosis, but I know exactly what you mean. You go, fuck me, where'd the last 2 hours go? Or I've just changed the 3rd CD or whatever, playlist or whatever it is you're doing with music. Oh, I'm onto the 5th album. How did that happen? I think Kairos time and flow, because I don't think that's a form of flow. I don't think driving, maybe it is, people enjoy driving and travel, but I think that's getting lost a little bit. And I think there's a distinction in that losing track of time versus getting lost in what it is you're doing. And maybe that's it. I know when I rode a motorbike, just the act of traveling was, you get lost in it, you know. You become so aware of the moment that you're constantly scanning for cars pulling out, or an animal, or someone's come up behind you, or there's an obstacle ahead of you, and you're very, very present. I don't know if that's what happens with highway hypnosis. I imagine highway hypnosis is more of a dumbing down of your senses, or a numbing, and I think that's the opposite of flow.
The unawareness and the awareness difference. Like in Kairos time, you're aware of it. In highway hypnosis, you're not really aware. You're not being aware.
Yeah, and I think the awareness is of what you're doing, not the awareness of the Kairos time, or the flow, or the hypnosis. With highway hypnosis, you're unaware that you're driving. With reading a good book, you're unaware that the time is passing, but you're well aware of the book because you're completely focused on it, you're completely present with it. Versus the highway hypnosis example, I think I would argue that you're just disappearing from the moment, the present moment.
The awareness is not there.
Yeah, and it must be because you stay on the road, and if something comes out in front of you, you put on the brakes. But there's got to be some autopilot place you go to that's maybe a distraction. I don't know.
Tell us what excites you these days. What are you into?
I'm very much into mindfulness. I'm very excited to be learning more and practicing more about mindfulness. For the last 4 months, I have managed to practice every day at least 30 minutes of meditation, and I've always known and I've always thought it'd be a really good idea to start a meditation practice, but I just simply didn't begin the act of practicing it. I didn't make the time, and so I've been making the time, and it's completely improving the experience that I'm having in every aspect of my life. And so,
can you tell us what you mean by mindfulness? When you say mindfulness, what do you mean by that word?
So I mean raising your awareness of what it is that you're doing at any given moment. As I'm answering these questions, I'm not always completely present in here. And so now my practice is trying to listen to what's happening to my body, any tension in my throat or in my head or in my chest or in my lower back, as I answer questions, as I talk, as I hear what you have to say, as I think about what it is I want to say, and just raising my awareness of what's actually happening in this moment, instead of what typically happens is my mind's drifting and or my ego is taking over, and well, you gotta look good, let's not sound like an asshole. Just raising my awareness of, I said that and now I'm feeling this, or I'm thinking about that and now I'm feeling this. So just an observation, mindfulness being an observation, I think.
Is it sensual? Like, are you getting the information from your senses? When you say, being aware of how your throat feels, and is this all based on sensual information, or other things? Or tell us a little bit about where you're getting the sensation of the awareness when it's happening.
Yeah. What can I show you? Okay. So, if you put your hands out in front of you, and then you make them into fists, and then if you clench your fists, and if you start to feel in your fists upset, I'm upset.
Like a tension?
Like a tension. And start to focus on, I am really frustrated. And so you can feel that there's a sensory piece of it, but there's also kind of an energetic level that changes. So when you're just clenching your fists, it feels one way. But when you think about being frustrated, there's almost this surge of energy that goes into them. So it's observing both. Now let it go. Now just let it fall away.
I felt like a kind of a heat too generating.
Like a tingling almost, or electricity, or just an actual heat.
Temperature rising,
heat.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a metric. That would be a metric of in your throat, in your chest, in your head, feeling that kind of heat. And it's yeah, it's probably not actually heat, but heat is a word or a signpost that you can use to point to or to describe what that sensation is. So that's what I mean, is raising your awareness of those experiences that are happening to you throughout the day. We're constantly giving ourselves feedback, as well as constantly the mind is going blah 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 blah, and then this song's happening, and this hurt feeling's happening, and this enjoyment feeling's happening. But if you can just kind of slow down and put some awareness into what sensations are happening like that in your body, you become more mindful. That's the mindfulness practice, I think. Or at least that's the part of it that I'm focusing on, is raising that awareness, so that instead of just being in an interaction with someone and then suddenly being aware that I'm raising my voice, or I'm enjoying myself, or I'm not enjoying myself, I can start to feel the change happening, and maybe make choices about how I'm interacting, or whether I stay or go.
And how does this affect your behavior? When you notice that there was an experience that you had that you look back and you were not aware, and then another experience where you were. How does your behavior change when you experience the awareness that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think there's a calm and a confidence that comes from it. And I don't mean confidence in a, look at me, I'm a badass. I mean confidence that there are options. I think a lot of my life I've led with this sense of I don't have a lot of options, and I'm resisting, or fighting, or fuck you, I shouldn't have to be limited. And when I raise my awareness and practice mindfulness, it becomes abundantly clear that I have unlimited options. And in that awareness, in that confidence of the fact that there's nothing but options, there's a calm that comes. And that calm is something that I really, really enjoy experiencing and working from, whether I'm collaborating, whether I'm in a conversation, whether I'm having a disagreement, to just have that calm and that space to be able to exist in problem solving.
What physically happens differently because of it when you're in that space? Is there anything physical, or is it all a way that it makes you feel, or both, or something else? What could is there something that we could measure that could tell you, this experience is happening physically?
Absolutely. The tension that's in your body. For me, I've always been quite neurotic. I used to have tics. I used to have tics when I was a child, kind of the twitching eye, or this, or doing something with my nose. I've had lower back complaints quite a bit, or stiff neck. And that's from tension, that's from holding the muscles. And you don't even know you're doing it. People that have TMJ, which is their jaw clenching and then locking up from clenching, they don't even know they're doing it. They're just, or people that tap their foot, or you mentioned your dad kind of does the table thing. And there's a tension that comes from using those muscles, whether it's the tappy or just a holding. You're holding you're flexing a certain muscle, whether it's your neck or your lower back or whatever it is, your jaw. And there's a absence of that tension when you're present. And in addition to that, there's an awareness that you are tense. So I have an awareness that, oh, my stomach's tightened. And then you can, by being aware of it, you can choose whether or not you want to keep tensing your muscles. And typically you want to let go of that tension, and when you let go of that tension is when those options start to come back, and when you start to feel like there's abundance rather than lack. And I think the tension comes from feeling like I don't have any options, and sometimes it really genuinely feels like you don't have any options, and sometimes you do not have any options. But to be able to observe that my reaction to knowing I don't have any fucking option right now is that I am feeling tense, I'm raising my voice, my throat is closing a little bit, I can feel it locking up, I feel that fire that you talked about. And then by raising my awareness that all that's going on, and then making a choice to observe that, and by observing it, it decreases automatically. And by observing, I'm feeling tense in my lower back, you're able to let it go a little bit. And if you keep your awareness, when it comes back to being tense again, you can release it again and release it again. And eventually, you're so aware, you're so mindful that you're not holding this tension, you're not limiting yourself. And I think it completely changes the way that you get to experience life. And the way people get to experience you.
If you had the chance to, say tomorrow, have an elevator ride with the future president of the United States. You just have a short while. They may not know it yet, but they're a young person. What, maybe you can give us some advice that you would give them, that you would want them to have as being the kind of the next generation to learn from.
So I'm aware that this person's going to become president, but they're not aware of it yet. They're 18. They're the child version of themselves.
Somehow you have this special power that you have this knowledge that they're going to be the president of the United States in 30 years or something like that. Is there anything that you think they should know that you know?
That I know in practice, or that I'm aware of and think would be a good idea for a president to do?
Advice that you would want to have if you were them.
Well, assuming that they'd be receptive to hearing it, I think it would be hard for me to not say, your office is a fucking joke. Because I don't think the office of the President of the United States is meaningful at this point. I think we started with Reagan showing that it doesn't matter who is in that office. It really doesn't. You don't have to be a great person to be in that role. You just have to be able to influence the decision making. God knows there is not any competency being measured. It's just popularity or people's ability to persuade others in mass. So I think I'd ask them to maybe raise the legitimacy of that office so that it's more esteemed again. I think there have been I don't know enough about American history, and I've only lived here since Clinton was president, and seen the Bush dynasty happen, which is laughable. Even where I come from, Britain, where we also mainly have a blue and a red party. So we have the same bipartisan befuckery that you have in America versus Europe, where there are many different parties and they are all taken seriously because they all have valid things to contribute. Unfortunately, the political model in America is, if my opponent thinks one thing, I just automatically think the opposite. There's no, well, where do we meet in the middle? It's all
Identity politics, kind of.
yeah, polarizing politics, and that's about competing rather than collaborating. And yeah, having had the experience of living in the Netherlands for 3 years now, where the party that's in power is a collection of parties. The government that's in office is a collection of, I think it's 5 different parties right now, it might be 6, that all have a seat at the table, and they're all listened to rather than undermined and ridiculed, and then a decision is made, and then they fucking do it and get on with it, instead of back and forth, nothing gets done except character assassination and a lot of ego work, or a lot of ego flexing, I should say. So I'd love to see the presidency become more of a noble office than a fucking joke and a spitting contest, a exerting of will. It doesn't matter what I do, I can be the biggest twat in the world and you're gonna have to deal with it. But that's already a lot of floors on the elevator, because I think what I'd really want to do is ask them to practice compassion now. Practice being compassionate now, and take that into office with you, so that when you're in office, it's not us against them. It's and you're the role model, and so people are seeing in your behavior and modeling, to some extent, some more than others, your behavior. And if your behavior is based in compassion, then we're going to be in a good place. Right now the pendulum has swung so far in the direction of closed-mindedness and putting up walls, that what I'm excited for, initially I thought it was the end of the fucking world when Trump got into office, and I thought this is the beginning of the end, and it helped me to make my decision to leave America after many, many years of really enjoying living in America. And I've had the perspective now, from not living here for 3 years, of realizing that it's just the pendulum swinging. That's what happens in America, is it swings this way, then it swings that way, and it swings this way, then it swings that way. And it's swung so far now that my excitement is high, because where's it going to swing to from here? If it swung this far in a closed off direction, how far is it going to swing in an opened up and loving direction and compassionate direction? And I'd hope it would be sooner than this 18-year-old that we see that swing in a direction of, holy shit. If this is the bigot's last, death throes, then we are in for an amazing next chapter. If this is finally the last of the closed-minded fucks attempt to be closed-minded, and in exercising that, they've just shown to themselves and to everyone else what a fucking waste of time that is. And then recovering from that now and swinging the pendulum back, man, how awesome is where we're going. I'm really excited for that.
You sound hopeful. You sound hopeful.
I think that would be putting it mildly. I'm not just hopeful, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the fucking demonstrating that's happened, take away the opportunists that have tried to make the protests into riots and violence and a negative thing. Take that away and realize that what's happened is a lot of people have come out to speak up and protest that this shit will not stand anymore. There's such a momentum, the numbers are so great that real listening, I think, is going to begin to happen now because of it. You can no longer not listen to these voices because there's so many of them. And so now everyone gets to get heard. Or my hope is that we build a platform or a vehicle so that these voices can be heard, instead of just, oh, for fuck's sakes, this person's a nutter, what they have to say doesn't matter. That we go to this place of, well, everyone's got something to teach us, everyone's got something to say, even the nutters, even the people that we think less of or think more of, or we think that we're not worthy. I think that goes away and we all get to say what we believe. And I like where you're coming from with the SE stuff, to examine, well, what is it that I believe? Is that worth believing? And question it. And I think if we all are moving to that, which we are, because otherwise it ends, you know. And it hasn't ended. World War III has not broke out. There's been some stupidity rampant since that office was taken over by Trump and by Reagan and by Bush and by other Bush. You know, fool me once, come on. A babbling idiot couldn't be, you know, you couldn't pick a more babbling idiot. Well, you could, because now Trump's in fucking office. Such an ego-driven maniac.
When you say World War III, do you mean like the actual war, weapons World War III, or just so much unrest throughout the world? Is that being World War III, or maybe both, or what?
Yeah.
World War III is not, I guess. What does World War III look like?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. That's good to not just throw that word out there and not define what it means.
What would have to happen for you to say, this is World War III?
Where you and I are living in a war zone. As protected as we think we are where we live, that becoming a war zone. Most of us haven't lived that. Most Americans haven't lived that. 9/11 was the first taste of that, and America shit its pants. Where I grew up, we moved to Greece when I was 12, and right before we got there, one of the people in charge, it was a military base, and the commander of the base was literally blown up. He was killed by a guerrilla terrorist, whatever you want to call these people that had access to a rocket launcher, and they shot a fucking rocket and killed the base commander. And so
at your base, at a base that you were
at the
living?
base I moved to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, before we had gotten there, not too long before we had moved there. So what we grew up with was, and we went to school off base on the other side of Athens. So what we grew up with was training on, okay, never take the same route home, don't be predictable in the things that you're doing, the places you're going. change up your, you were kind of taught how to not become a target of violence, what Americans would call terrorism. But that was terrorism, and we had bomb threats and shit in high school. Can you imagine having a bomb threat, having to go outside to a designated area?
Yeah, we actually did.
Did you have that?
Yeah, we had lots of them.
So now imagine that, but it's because there was a bombing,
Right.
And so with 9/11, that's what it was. Is now any precautions are because fuck me, it happened, but it hadn't happened. So I think World War III looks like us not just getting to, talk about, oh, I wonder what that would be like, but actually having to fucking live it. The horror of that.
Well, there are people living in that situation right now, as we all know.
In other places in the world,
yeah,
you mean?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, why? So, but that's not World War III. It would have to happen.
The whole world would have to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole world, like everywhere, would have to look like, I guess, maybe, there's so many things, like Libya right now, I think maybe is...
Or Afghanistan. Or
yeah.
Croatia.
So the whole world would have to be that in order for World War III to be happening.
Yeah. Yeah, when I think of World War III, I'm thinking of like Armageddon, the end of times, end of the world. I think World War III, I think the assumption that I've made is that World War III would be the end of the world. It wouldn't be like World War I, World War II, where there's a winner at the end. We've got such weaponry now that we'd end up wiping ourselves off the planet. No one would survive. Or there'd be a small pocket of fucking...
There would be no humans at the end of World War III is basically what you're saying.
I think that's fair to say. I suppose that's a different thing than just saying World War, add a number. What I'm talking about is the end of human existence. And I think probably a lot of people, myself, definitely thought that with Trump coming into office, this is the beginning of us no longer being on this planet. Such disregard, such lack of compassion coming from that man, and him being put into this office of the President of the United States of America. America's chief export is lifestyle. So the rest of the fucking world looks at Americans and wants to imitate that. From the Adidas to the Coca-Cola to the fucking McDonald's to the Dunkin' Donuts. And it's not sustainable. The whole planet can't live the way that Americans live. It probably sounds like I'm America bashing. I'm not. Britain is just as fucking much to blame for... Yeah, we could talk about Brexit if you want, but we talk about beginning of the end of the world. It wasn't just Trump that made me feel it's the beginning of the end of the world. It's just the ridiculous shift in politics. The Netherlands had it. They had this guy that was, because Boris is a lot like Trump, the British Prime Minister. The Netherlands had this Wilhelm fucker that was talking the same sort of hate to immigrants. And now I don't fully know his story, and I know the immigration there is a complete fuck up. They just let people in with no plan to integrate and no plan to help people transition. And if you're gonna immigrate, or if you're gonna let refugees come in, there's got to be a way to help them understand what's happening locally, and to have some kind of a bridge between the culture they're used to, the culture of the place they've come to, and how do we combine them, instead of one culture having to, I think there's a lot of Moroccans that come in, and I think some of the Dutch are put out by, I remember in Britain, we're going to have mosques, we're going to have, this and that, and so they feel put out by, well, I don't want this, and then the refugees that are coming in, they're not necessarily looking for, oh, now I want to become a full Dutch. They just want somewhere peaceful to live, but they want to bring their traditions with them. And so there's a way to do that where we can all come to the table and come up with like a new culture of rituals and barbecues, and all we're doing is just trying to enjoy our days. And so if we come up with a way that we all can enjoy our days, and the things that we enjoy are respected, instead of xenophobia happening, where we're just fucking terrified of what's different from us, then the people like Trump and Boris and this Wilhelm guy and the in Germany the radical parties that are coming there as well and everywhere. Then those aren't happening. Then instead of being scared of each other, we're curious to understand each other more, which is obviously a really rose-colored glasses way to look at it. But I don't think we can afford to dismiss optimism and compassion as being an ideal anymore. I think we've got to actively practice compassion and actively fucking listen to each other. Because what's the alternative? Burn each other down? None of us are going to be left. And so that's why I'm so hopeful, because I think it's inevitable. I don't think it's sustainable that we're all going to set fire to each other. It's just not. Most people don't want to cause harm to other people. They get pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then you get the worst in them come out. But I don't think most people want to be pushed to that level. And so I'm excited to see, now that people have had a bit of a fucking hoorah and realized, well, this isn't what I'm actually looking for. I'm not looking to have to go protest in the fucking streets for 7 days in a row. What I'm looking for is for everyone to be able to have a seat at the table and put that same energy into getting that seat at the table and doing the problem solving that it takes to get there, and having the compassion to listen to people they don't want to fucking listen to, even the Trumps, even the Borises, being able to listen to what it is they're proposing, and to all do it with compassion and a sense of curiosity. And so I'm so excited about now the pendulum swinging toward that, which it is. I mean, that's what a pendulum does. It has no way to stay up. It's got to come swinging back. And America is the fucking land of opportunity. It is the place where these things not just can happen, but do happen. And I'm so excited to see where America's going to take this now.
How do you tell that the pendulum has changed directions already? Is it by the protesting, like you were mentioning before, or what's your sign that tells you that the pendulum has already gone as far as it was going to in the other direction?
Yeah, no, if I gave the sense that I know that, I apologize. I just know that it is swung further than it ever has. I don't know that it won't swing further before it starts swinging back. I just know that it will at some point swing back, because if he gets in for another 4 years, that's not going to be swinging back. It's going to go further, but it will swing back. And my hope is that the people that say my vote doesn't count will now hopefully realize what a damaging mindset that is to have. As powerless as you feel, there's a lot of things that had to happen so that people had the right to vote. And to say my vote doesn't count is extremely irresponsible. It's been frustrating for me to live in America for 22 years and not be a citizen, and not be a citizen, but because I'm not a citizen, because I'm here on a green card, I don't have the right to vote. And to hear people say my vote doesn't count when all I want to do is vote, because I know what it took to be able to get the right to vote. For everyone can vote now. I mean, except for felons and things. There are people that can't vote still. It's a whole different fucking conversation. And yeah, let's not get into incarceration and the furtherment of slavery through the prison system. But most people can vote, most people can vote. And so my hope is that now the people that said my vote doesn't count will hopefully have questioned whether that's an accurate truth to have, and come to the conclusion that I should vote, and they get out and vote. And then I think we'll start to see the pendulum swing, but I don't know if it's going to keep swinging. I don't know if it's stopped. I can't tell if it's swung the other way. I just know that it'll swing back. And I'm so excited about seeing where it goes when it swings back the other way. Because if it swung this fucking far, momentum dictates that it will swing an equal way back. And fuck me, is that going to be an amazing place that we go to.
What is that going to look like?
What's that going to look like?
Yeah, let's say the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction as far as it has swung so far in the other one. What does that look like, generally speaking? How could you describe that world, so to speak?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think it's right now there's a sense of unease in most of us. And I think what it looks like is there's a sense of ease in most of us. That's what it looks like.
What does that look like?
How do we get to that sense of ease, or what does it look like?
What does daily life look like when that's happening? When you feel more of an ease that everybody seems to be having compared to now. Like what's an example? Say we go to the mini mart now, and we have this unease. Let's say the pendulum is swung all the way back the other direction as far as it has with this direction. We go to the mini mart. What's different?
Yeah, so I think what would be different is the experiences that you're having in there would be inclusive instead of exclusive. So instead of being cut in front of in line, or feeling impatient because someone's got 1,500 things and they're paying with nickels and dimes, and
So we're more polite, that kind of thing?
yeah, more polite, more patient, more calm. There's more space. There's more I think we're in less of a rush. That's for damn sure. And I think we value different things. Instead of valuing the things, we're valuing the experience and each other. I really think if we don't learn to value to value each other, then I'm not quite sure where we're going, what the point is. And I've lived a lot of my life focused on the things, and had a lot of conflict and turmoil because of that. And as I've started to open myself up to communication and trying on someone else's shoes for a bit of a walk, and giving the benefit of the doubt, and it's a better life. It's so much a better life that I have no interest in going back. And if I fall or if I slip up, I become pretty aware pretty quickly that this is not how I want to spend my time. And I think that's what it looks like. You see it in the grocery store all the time, and I love that, where someone will, oh, you go ahead of me, I don't know what their motivations are. What's someone's motivation for saying, oh, that's a really nice jacket on you? Who knows what their fucking motivation is? But we know it's coming from a place of kindness, compassion, love. And I think we see a lot more of that sort of stuff. And not just see it, but we just sort of do it. Just without even thinking, we're inclined to be doing it. We have that feeling of ease and abundance instead of that feeling of unease and the illusion that we're lacking something. We lack nothing, and man, when you just sit back and ask yourself, what do I actually lack right now in this moment? As I take this breath in and I let this breath out, what's missing? And the answer is there's so much abundance. I'm sure I sound privileged and cocky and arrogant in some ways, but I don't care for things. I just care that I'm living this existence in a different way. I think we all are. I think we're all realizing the same thing. It's happening to all of us. The fucking world has shut down like never before in any of our lifetimes, most of our lifetimes. And there's no getting away from the fact that we can't sustain what we've been doing. We've been shown just from one fucking one big unknown that is this coronavirus, that a big unknown comes along and shit shuts down. This is just a virus. And so my assumption is that most of us are going through this and realizing this can't go on like this. I think a lot of us already felt that way. We've got a lot of environmentalists and people like that kind of thing, but now it's in your face. It's like when gas prices go up, it affects your pocketbook, then you're aware of it. Well, now I think we're all becoming more aware of it. Not just the people that are open to it, but also the people that aren't. And I think it's going to be a difficult transition for a lot of people. It's a difficult one for me. I'm having to reprogram myself. That's what my journey is. And I might sound calm about it, but it's fucking horrible. It's horrible to realize that you're treating people poorly, that you're coming across like an asshole, that you're creating so much more work and tension for yourself than you really need to, that you've got some horrible assumptions about certain things, and that when you look at them you realize they're based on nothing. They're based on inaccuracies, untruths. And to then be able to have the fucking strength to say, no, I want to change that. Because you don't just change it, you don't just say, well, I want to be different. It's a lot of little choices that happen. It's a lot of little habits that you have to start changing. And maybe because I'm so focused on mindfulness right now, my assumption is that we all are. But I don't think it's an unfair assumption. I think the more people I talk to, the more they're starting to talk differently about things. They're starting to put value on different things. Certainly a lot of people are still on autopilot, and as soon as the shops open, they're in the shops distracting themselves and avoiding their problems. But just for a while there, they didn't have the option to do that. And as a globe, as a species, we've all been touched by that, and that's going to affect us all collectively. And the improvements that happen to one person are going to benefit every person. And that's why I think we've all, this whole "my vote doesn't count." It's how you live your life counts, man. Every choice you make counts, and yes, your vote counts.
So one thing I've been asking people about is, or I've been interested in talking to people about is, our beliefs, why we hold them, and what gets us, what gives us the confidence that what we're believing is actually the case.
What's an example of a belief that you hold to that level?
Well, I can refer to my first podcast where the belief that I hold that I think that I have the most confidence in being true is the belief that something is happening, something is going on, there is something happening. I'm 99% confident that something is happening.
Something is happening. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Yeah. An experience is going on.
So this isn't imagined.
Events are happening.
Events are happening.
Events are happening in time, and there is an awareness here that is aware of that.
And is that your awareness, our collective awareness, the awareness of something greater than us?
Well, I'm not even 100% positive that it's real. I'm not claiming that it is this way.
Okay.
I'm claiming that this is a belief that I have,
Okay.
that I hold to a confidence level of 99%.
So it's a question of faith, that you have faith that this is what's happening, but it's not a certainty for you.
I wouldn't use the word faith. I would say I'm confident to a level of 99% that this belief that I hold is true.
What's your aversion to using the word faith in the example of this?
Faith can mean a whole lot of things to a whole lot of different people.
Mm-hmm. So it's the word faith you have a problem with, not necessarily what faith means.
Well, it depends on what the definition that we're using the word faith in what context. I tend not to use the word faith because it's associated with believing things without good reasons.
And isn't that what belief is?
Not necessarily having good reasons to believe something, but taking it on faith that it's true. I don't think that that's a reliable way to access what is most likely true.
So, to help define this better, can you tell me the difference between believing in something and having faith in something?
I believe that the house that I live in is in the state of Washington.
You believe in
I have good reasons to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at a map,
Mm-hmm.
and we can see borders.
Mm-hmm.
We see that, like on Google Maps, we can look and see where our current location is at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and see that according to Google and according to most of the maps that we have in the world, our house is located in this territory we call Washington with borders.
And so you believe that your house is in
believe
Washington?
that we live in Washington. We can look at the deed of the house
Mm-hmm.
and see the address. We can check that with records at the courthouse. Those are good reasons to believe that we live in Washington.
Okay.
Faith would not be a good reason to believe that we live in Washington. Now, I could be wrong about us living in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly confident that we do, but I give myself the ability to be convinced that, borders might be wrong due to Native America, and technically we don't live in Washington. Something like that could.
Mm-hmm.
I leave myself open for that possibility to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Using faith to believe that leprechauns are real would not be a reliable method to determine that leprechauns are real.
So what would be an example of something that you have faith in? You've given me an example of something that you believe in. What's something you have faith in?
I can't think of anything that I would use faith to believe.
So you don't have faith in anything, or you simply don't use the word faith to
According to
describe
my
things.
definition.
Yeah.
According to my definition, I try not to ever use faith.
So that I can help, or so that I can better understand what your definition of faith is, Can you give me an example of something someone has faith in, or the way someone uses? What is faith? Or can you give me an example of faith then? You said the faith that you believe in leprechauns, and I got a bit confused because you used the word believe in your description of faith. Can you do it without using that word?
If somebody said that they think leprechauns are real, and I ask them why, and they say because I have faith that they do,
Okay.
I don't think that that wouldn't be a good enough reason for me to believe that leprechauns are real. That would not convince me that leprechauns are real.
Sure. So the difference between belief and faith for you, belief is something that you have some evidence for. You could be wrong, but you're pretty sure you're right because of the evidence, because of the examination that you've done of the belief. But faith is more of a, it's less definable, it sounds like, for you. And because it's less definable, it's not very reliable.
Belief is a noun to me, and faith is a method. Belief is what you use faith to arrive to, what some people use. So faith is the method that we use to determine a belief. So you use faith to come to a belief. You don't use a belief to come to a faith.
So faith would be the fake it that you do until you make it, and the make it would be the belief.
Belief or faith is a method. It's a way. It's an epistemology. It's a way to know something.
Okay. So in that regard, it would be a useful tool, faith.
I don't think that it's reliable.
It's not reliable
Because people can use faith to arrive at a bunch of different conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're a Christian, and we have a Hindu standing over here. Typically, as a Christian, you would tell me that the Christian God is real.
Mm-hmm.
And some Christians use faith as a method to determine that their God is real. Like, I have faith that my God is real. I use faith that my God is real. I can't see him. I can't touch him. I can't talk to him, in the way that we talk.
Mm-hmm.
But I know he's real. And I use faith as a means. Faith is the ferry boat that takes me from God is not real to God is real. Not for everybody, but some people use faith to verify as a verification method that their God is real. So they know, as Christians, most Christians, that since the Christian God is real, that means no other God can be real. Yet, as a neutral observer here, I'm asking the Hindu that also says that they're using faith to determine that their God is real. How do I, as a neutral observer, how do I tell who's correct? If you're both using faith to arrive at the conclusion that your particular gods are real, if you can come to different conclusions using faith, then it's not reliable.
And their belief is?
Their belief that their belief is reliable.
Is reliable, yeah. Yeah, so my question is, their faith is unreliable, is what I'm hearing you say.
Faith as a method to determine if something is true is unreliable to me.
And their belief is something that's reliable for you. Or how they got to that belief, it sounds like that's what's reliable to you.
I'm saying it's not reliable. Their use of faith to determine that their specific God is real is not a reliable method from my perspective.
Sure, and I totally understand that. So then my query is, but belief is? Their faith isn't, but it sounds like you're saying their belief is?
Do I think their belief is real?
No, but that their belief, that them explaining their faith in something doesn't help you understand that thing.
Right.
Them explaining
that
their
gets
belief
me no closer to believing that their God is real. by them appealing to faith.
Yeah. No, I completely hear what you're saying there. And my question is, then if we take their belief in the fact that their God's real, how does that differ for you? How does that make it so that you can use that as a way to determine whether maybe you believe that?
Yeah,
as well?
I don't want to use it if I don't think it's reliable.
So belief is more reliable than faith.
Belief is the conclusion, I think.
Okay.
Belief is more of a what you arrive to, and you can use faith to arrive at a belief. You can use evidence to arrive at a belief. You can use a gut feeling to arrive at a belief. You can use, the scientific method to arrive at what is likely true. I can't think of. There might be a way, but I can't think of any example of where I would say that a belief is reliable.
Okay. So belief is not a certainty.
The way I see it, if I believe something, that means I'm convinced of it.
Yeah,
I'm convinced that it's true.
Your belief in it is certainty, or your belief in it leaves room for the fact that I'm pretty sure, but I can't say I'm certain?
That's where the confidence level is.
Yeah.
So I'm 99% positive that something is happening, that there's an experience going on. I can't prove to you that it is or it isn't.
Okay.
I'm using that as a foundation to build everything else that I know about or that I believe about reality to be true or real on that thing that I can't prove one way or another. It's called a presupposition. I presuppose that this is the truth, that something is happening, that's the truth. And I use that as the foundation to build every other belief that I have off of it.
Every other belief, or also choices, actions?
Well, our beliefs inform our choices and actions. We act because of what we believe.
So how does the way you act change because you believe that we are experiencing something?
How does the belief that I have that we experience something change my actions?
Yeah.
It gives me a starting point.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. If I didn't believe that something was happening, I don't know what that is like, so I don't know how to compare it to. I don't know how it's not like, which is why it's a presupposition. It's something that I can't prove or disprove or even falsify. I can't show you what it would be like if it wasn't happening this way. So I don't know if I would be able to have an example of
how it affects your actions.
How it would affect my actions. It's because it's a foundation. Okay. I don't know what it would be like if I didn't have it.
So what would happen if your foundation became shook and suddenly you realized that what you believed might not be? How would that change your life?
I already have that possibility. I'm open of that possibility happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that extra. That's that from 99 to 100.
That's that 1%.
That's that unknown. One. That's that opening in that door. That I want to have room to be wrong.
You want to have room to be wrong. I like that.
I want to, but I would need to be convinced, and it would take quite a bit of convincing.
Yeah.
For me not to have that as a foundation. Somebody would have to, and I don't know what would convince me. maybe you were able to stand up, draw this rectangle in midair, and it creates this kind of Truman Show door that shows me to this other dimension where everybody is involved in creating this experience through like some sort of matrix that's controlling me having the experience. But even then, that would be happening. So that something would be the thing that's happening.
Okay.
See what I mean? It's
you
hard
just
for
weren't
me to.
aware of it, but it was happening nonetheless.
But it's still a happening.
Right.
So my belief that something is happening would still be true.
Yeah, because something's happening, just not what you thought.
Exactly.
It's interesting you mentioned the Truman Show, because I think it's like films like Groundhog Day. You've seen Groundhog Day? Have you ever read the script for Groundhog Day?
I've never read the script.
I mean, I don't know that many people have, but it's a pretty fascinating. It's quite a it's like Star Wars. When Lucas was doing Star Wars, Joseph Campbell was his mentor at the time, and so this hero's journey that Anakin and Vader and Luke go on is based on the mentorship of Joseph Campbell, and so the story has the reason it resonates with so many people is because its storytelling is based on a lot larger storytelling perspective than just Lucas. It's based on different religions' stories and different religions' heroes' journeys, and likewise with Groundhog Day, and likewise with like the Truman Show. The Truman Show I think resonates, and I don't know. I mean, I know for me it resonates, but I think it resonates from a place of ego, because I think, what if the show's all about me? And I assume that we've all had that thought at some time.
We're all the protagonist in our adventure.
Right. And how self-serving is that thought, that this is all about me. And at some point they're going to lift the veil and everyone's fucking working to make it so that Dave gets to have this experience, or this lesson learned, or, I mean, does everyone feel that? Do you know? Has everyone had that thought at some point that, fuck me, this might just be the Truman Show and I'm Truman? Do you think we all do? That we all have had that thought? Maybe more than others, some? Do you think Trump thinks that he's Truman? And everyone's just scurrying around making his reality happen?
It's hard to tell what other people are thinking.
Sure.
I think just the fact that we have the Truman Show, the movie, says a lot about maybe how a lot of us see ourselves. Movies are kind of a reflection of what we think we are, or what we think other people think we are.
Or what someone that had the money to fund the project allowed to be created through the creative process and edited because of their beliefs and their prejudices. And
it's storytelling.
It is storytelling. It's abridged storytelling. It's heavily edited and modified storytelling, but it's storytelling.
The inside of caves are storytelling, and we, as modern humans, can learn a lot about the way of life and the way people saw themselves by reading the stories that they drew on the inside of caves.
Yeah.
That's how we learn about how they saw themselves as who they thought they were. And so the Truman Show is just another cave drawing.
Right.
On the stalactite of humanity.
In the cave of humanity. The current day cave.
Would you like to so why don't you pick a belief that what is the belief that you have the most confidence is true?
What concept do I believe in the most? What thing?
What statement do you have the most confident in being true? Or concept, or however you want to take that, I guess. Some people like to talk about, you know, uh, reality is real, or we talked about, God's being real. That sometimes people's that's what they're most confident in.
That's how they live their life.
Yes. Karma is real.
Mm-hmm.
Ghosts are real. Leprechauns are real.
Okay.
What are you most confident in being true or real? Something that affects your behavior.
Yeah. I'm having trouble finding one belief, and it sounds like you're asking for a pretty big belief, because it's really at the heart of most of your choices. It's not just a preference.
A belief that if you found out was not true would dramatically change your outlook on the world.
And so, does it need to be of a religious or spiritual or esoteric nature?
No.
Because I have a belief that I believe in my ability to master. So I believe in the statement, it would be easier to explain it this way. I believe in the statement, practice makes the master.
Practice makes a master.
Practice makes the master.
The master.
I think it's originated in the East. The statement that practice makes the master. You hear it in the West, practice makes perfect. But I like the term practice makes the master because, and the reason I believe in it is because I have observed that I'm able to utilize that in my own life. I, at the age of 35, had never touched a piano with any kind of serious thought. I didn't know the difference between the black keys and the white keys. And in a short amount of time, through practicing at least 40 minutes a day, in 2 years I was able to reach a level of competency at playing, or a level of proficiency at playing, that I was extremely satisfied with, and made me curious about learning more, teaching piano and pursuing it more and enjoying it more. And so practice made me master that skill set. With computer programming in my early 20s, I didn't know what the fuck RAM was versus ROM versus hard drive versus, and this was back in the day when 256K modems and all that kind of nonsense, where now we're at gigabytes and terabytes of data and memory. But I didn't know a thing about these concepts. And through practicing, what a mentor that I had latched onto, 2 mentors I'd latched onto, 3 mentors I had latched onto, had taught me, practicing those things that they taught me, I gained mastery of computers and computer software and that language and that architecture to the point where I was then making a living as a programmer, as a computer programmer. And I got that mastery through practicing. So I have shown myself multiple times that this statement, practice makes the master, is true. Practice makes the master. I believe that practice makes the master. I didn't know how to sail a boat, but I knew that if I practiced it, I could become proficient at it. I could have some level of mastery over it. And so I bought one. It also happened that I lived on the thing because I, at that point in my life, had never owned where I lived and wanted that experience and was sick of paying someone else's mortgage, but I couldn't afford and didn't really want to own property where I was at. So I bought the boat, I learned it, I went out with someone that knew better than I did, a lot better, at how to sail, several people. But I kind of had a particular mentor, and I practiced it, and I got better at it, to the point where I had some competency in it. I mastered it. I think master is a pretty powerful word. You master something, it kind of implies that you've...
Yeah, why don't you tell us what criteria are you using to label something as mastered?
So I think we could use it for driving. I think you have mastered driving. And I use that, I think it can be used quite loosely because you might be a shit driver, but you've mastered driving. You know how to put the foot on the pedal to make the car go faster, put the foot on the pedal that makes the car go slower, steer it, turn it on, turn it off. You've mastered those things. So where I think it could be, it's like the word faith. It can be, it's like the word God. You could hear it and go, ooh. And I think it takes taking a step back from that ooh reaction to go, okay, wait a minute, this isn't the thing. I've talked about it with you before. This is a signpost pointing to the thing. So master is a signpost that points to this concept. Master isn't the concept. You can master brushing your teeth. That comes pretty quickly with a pretty little amount of effort, but it comes with practice. And that's why I believe that practice makes the master, because with practice, and it takes practice, you can't just half-ass it. You can't just phone it in. And that's what practice is, it's repetition. And if you repeat doing something enough, you will gain a level of mastery over that thing. You will gain, I think master, the word skill development, or the concept of developing skills at a thing, is what I mean by mastering a thing. Because you can, like with driving, you could you could accomplish a varied level of skill development at driving. You could learn how to drive a car very fast around a racetrack. That would be a different mastery of driving than just being able to go to Walmart and back to get the family the things they need.
And those are both mastering?
Yeah, you've mastered the ability to drive to Walmart and back to get the things that the family are asking for, versus mastering the ability to handle the car around a race course at high speeds.
So Johnny family and Mario Andretti are
family,
both masters at driving?
On different levels. They've mastered different levels of driving. Does that make sense? They've mastered different levels of driving. So Susie, homemaking, I'm thinking she's 15 and no one else in the family cares to go outside of the house, and because of that she's had to get a driver's license and grow up way faster than she needed to, and become the person that drives to Walmart and gets the shit and brings it back. because I've known those people, and it's weird to me that you can drive at 15 in America, but regardless of that, she's mastered driving. She can get the job done.
Even if she's not good at it, she's still a master, you would say?
Well, she's mastered the ability to drive, so she's practiced it enough where she can pull it off. She can accomplish the task. And so to some level, accomplishing the task is mastering it. I think you could take mastering it to the level of art, of making driving an art form, and I would say anyone that rides a motorbike with any level of competency, that's a level of mastery of travel that is different than just being able to drive to Walmart and back. It's like the difference between driving bumper cars and the Mario Andretti example you used. There's some driving that's just a step up from bumper cars, and there's some driving it's art. It's an extension of themselves. It's a level of presence that is extremely heightened versus the level of presence that's needed to just drive to Walmart and back.
Okay, so the belief is practice creates the master.
Practice creates the skill set. The expression is practice makes the master. I believe that practice makes the master.
And the reason that's holding this belief up the most is because of your experiences that you had, that you took the effort to practice.
Yeah.
You developed the skills over time, and you consider yourself a master at the things that you have sought out to practice.
Not a master of the things, but that I've mastered a certain level of competency in the thing I'm pursuing. So I wouldn't say I'm a master at playing the piano. I'd say I've mastered the ability to play at a certain level.
Okay.
It's a pretty loaded word, master, because you think of master and servant. You think of, there's a lot.
There's different levels of master.
There's a signpost that points to a lot of fucking things, and it's important for us to not get hung up on the word master and just understand that it's a suggestion towards a concept. And I don't know if I've helped understand what the concept I'm trying to talk about is. I think that's how I've gotten in a lot of trouble in my life, is I'll use certain words. I grew up in a different fucking country, so from the start out, I don't use the same language that you use in America. And because of those words that, for me and the people I grew up around, that signpost points pretty clearly to this thing, I get into trouble because the signpost points to something completely different to most of the people I interact with.
It's like thumbs up in Australia.
Yeah.
I think that means something else other than give me a ride.
Yeah, or rubber.
So there's different. So okay. Is basing your belief that practice makes the master is that, and the reason that you believe that is your experiences that we just went over. Why is that a good reason to believe that practice makes the master? Why is having a foundation of your experiences, why is that good information to arrive at the conclusion that practice makes the master?
Well, it's tangible proof. It's, I suppose it's like the scientific method. In a lot of ways, without setting out to do it scientifically, I laid out a hypothesis. One could learn to play Moonlight Sonata on the piano. being my hypotheses. And then I set up an experiment, which was, can I learn to play Moonlight Sonata on the piano? And I set up some tasks to break Moonlight Sonata down into phrases, after first having learned what the fuck a phrase is, and what C is, and what F sharp is, and developing some knowledge that would lead me to be able to then understand what it would take to read the sheet music and to play the sheet music, and in my case, to find a mentor to show me how to do it, watch me do the thing and let me know where I could improve, and then let me go do it. That's my learning style. I've been fortunate enough to have the awareness to know that that's the best way for me to learn something. And
we talked about the confidence scale earlier, but where would you put yourself on the confidence level of
practice makes the master?
Practice makes the master. I am blank % confident about this, where 0 is no confidence, only questions. 100% is there's no way that I could be wrong about this, no question at all, complete confidence.
Well, I think there's no way to say there's no way I could be wrong about this, about anything. I think if you can say those words, there's no way I can be wrong about this, you're not someone I want to spend any amount of time with, and I definitely don't want you making decisions that are going to affect me.
Why?
Why? Because to be closed off to the idea that there's a more than one way to do something is not just a tragedy, it's not just a lost opportunity, but it's oppressive. It really is oppressive. And I know that I have conducted myself in that way at different times. I'm fucking certain about this. And standing on your pillar of certainty, you fall really fucking hard when you are knocked off of that, coming to realize that what you were certain of was not certain. Nothing is fucking certain. It's all malleable. It's all can change like that. So I'm as certain as I could be without having the audacity to say that there's no way I could be wrong about this. I am certain that I could be wrong about this. I'm certain that it could be that practice doesn't make the master. It could be just natural ability makes the master. You put 5 people up and they all practice the same thing, I mean, already you're going to get different results, even if they're practicing at the same scheduled 40 minutes a day, whatever it is, learning how to take a car engine apart and put it back together again, or playing the piano, or learning how to manage a farm of trees. So as confident as I can be that those 5 people will each gain a level of mastery at that thing that they're all practicing. But hopefully
But mastery can be
exactly
relative, you're kind of saying, maybe, huh?
Mastery is not a metric that is fixed. It's a scale. Mastery is a scale. I mean, you see it in the BDSM community all the time. People aren't always dominant, always submissive. There's a scale. There's a spectrum, and I tell you what, that's a good way to look at. I've found that that's a good way to look at everything, because when I've looked at things black and white without a scale, it's the same as that uncertain, or as that certainty. I am certain that this is a thing. Black or white, red or blue, it's always a recipe for upset if you don't take into consideration that there's not just a scale, but there's a possibility that you could be wrong.
They talk about the black and white fallacy, where an example of that would be like when Bush said, "You're either with us or you're against us."
Right.
And that's not necessarily all the choices that we have.
Right.
There can
Right.
be, a spectrum of where we fall. It's not always I guess it could be debated, but there's hardly anything that's black and white.
When you asked what that pendulum would look like, and I think that's part of it. Where we're at now, we're in black and white thinking. When we swing back, we will have so many notches on the scale of how we measure things. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like the difference between black and white, on or off, this or that. The difference between that, which is where we're at now, you're either against me or you're for me, you're with me, to scale, to so many variations of grey that come between black and white. That's what it's going to look like. The fact that not only do we measure, but we take into consideration that there's not just on or off, there's not just red and blue, there's every fucking colour, and some we can't even see. And just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're any less important. There what it looks like.
Have you ever picked up any activity and just was a natural with it? Like, was there any time where this process didn't pan out this way? I guess, has there been any examples of when practice did not make the master, or it wasn't practice that made the master? Has this ever not happened this way?
Yeah, so I think what you're asking me, have I ever practiced something and then at the end of it not mastered it?
Or have you mastered something without the
practicing,
need
right.
for practice?
Okay, so that maybe what you
Either
just said
one, yeah,
is what you were actually asking, and I read into it.
I guess what I'm trying to find out is, can this belief not be true sometimes?
Absolutely it can. I think there are people that don't have to practice a lot of things. I talked about our guitar playing friend that had absolutely minimal music theory awareness and knowledge, and was a fucking natural at coming up with the most complex series of chord progressions that people that mastered the theory would envy, just because it just flowed through him. And I don't think he had to practice at that. I mean, he practiced music, he practiced coming up with these things, but he didn't have to practice coming up with unnecessary complex things. It just seemed to come to him. But the more he practiced it, the better he got at it. So even at that. But no, I don't think it's a belief in as much as it's this or nothing. It's just a belief that is a good tool to put on my tool belt, and know that, well, if I need to gain skill at something, I know that if I whip out the practice makes the master tool and give it a couple of turns, more than a couple of turns, a shitload of turns. And that's the answer to the other question that I read into your question is, have I ever practiced something and not mastered it? And the answer to that is, I stopped fucking practicing it, so I didn't master it.
You weren't seeing results,
or I wasn't motivated to keep practicing. My piano instructor gave me the best advice. He said, if you're not enjoying practicing, stop fucking practicing. because you're not going to want to do it. If you enjoy doing it, you're going to want to do it. You're going to practice. It's just going to come to you. So I suppose there's a motivation level to practice makes the master. You've got to want to practice, but you can force yourself to practice, unfortunately, or fortunately. I think fortunately. You can force yourself to practice. You can develop a habit, a discipline, like the mindfulness practice I talked about. That didn't just happen. It was a series of choices each morning to, all right, this is what I'm going to spend this next 30 minutes doing. Everything else is going to have to wait. And so it's like a discipline, I suppose. And I think, yeah, it's not always something you enjoy, because you think, oh, I'd rather not delay my day 30 minutes further. I know I've thought that, rather than realizing, well, I'm actually investing in my day by spending this 30 minutes, which is now how I tend to view it more.
I'm not saying this is the case, but let's say hypothetically that that we discovered that you would have mastered to the level that you have the piano, and you somehow found out that it wasn't the practicing that got you to that level, that you would have been at that level without the practice.
Instantly.
Yeah.
With no effort.
Yeah, somehow we found out that would have happened anyway without your practicing.
Would that shake my belief
Would
in
that
practice makes
lower
the master?
your confidence in the belief that practice makes the master?
I don't think it would lower my confidence in it, because I still see so many examples of it. I think that's how we check our assumptions. I think that's how we check our core values, our core assumptions, our core beliefs, is by seeing examples of it, or seeing examples of the opposite of it, and then going, oh, fuck me, wait a minute, am I wrong about this? And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's a really constructive exercise to go through. I think if you showed me that everything that I've gained a skill level at, I could have just instantly had that skill level without the practice, not just the piano, but the sailing, the programming, the photography pieces, all of it.
All the things that you feel you've gained that level of master
through practicing. If you showed me that through all of those,
if somehow I could,
I don't know how.
I don't either. But if somehow hypothetically we could present that to you as being, actually you would be just as good at sailing now if you had done no practicing.
If you'd have just gone out there, if you'd have just sat
pulled this rope, pulled that rope.
Yeah, if you'd have just done because there would have to be something to turn it on, right? It'd have to be. You couldn't just show up. You'd have to sit in the float tank, and then you get out of the float tank, and you go sail, and you've got yourself to this level of confidence that you know how to do this, that you don't even blink. Walk in there like you own the place, that kind of thing. Because there need to be some. I mean, or do you just walk through life just showing up, knowing what to do?
It's the 4-year-old that picks up a bat.
Yeah.
For the first time ever.
Yeah.
You throw him a wiffle ball and he knocks it out of the park.
Okay. That's that instinctual level.
Yeah, I mean, we could call it luck or whatever, but that's kind of what I'm thinking of when, as a presentation, as a demonstration of, actually, you didn't need to practice all that.
You just had this belief that held you back, man. I practiced these things without realizing that if I'd have skipped the practice and just done it, I would have had that level, that skill level.
Yeah, if this could be proven to you right now, to your satisfaction, how would that affect your confidence level in the belief that practice makes the master?
That would completely change the way I live my life. Completely. Because if I knew that I could show up and just get on with it, whether it's flying a helicopter, whether it's playing the upright bass, which is something that at some point I will start practicing, and at some point I will gain some mastery at. If I was shown, as you say, that really what needs to happen is just get on with it, just show up and do it, and that skill's there, it's just in you. Yeah, that would seriously upheave my understanding of the world I live in. And it would seriously take any kind of limitations off of me too, I think. Maybe this belief is holding me back. It's a good point. I don't think life is that fucking easy. I don't think you get to just show up and just, oh, now I'm this. Now suddenly the world's problems are solved. I think it takes effort, it takes the practice and the discipline. But that's just because that's what I've seen. That's just because that's what I've had to do to get mastery of something. I've had to pay my dues, if you will. And I think a lot of us do. A lot of us pay dues and get no reward. But I think we've all practiced something and then seen, oh wait, I'm better at it now. You know, someone that's learning tennis, you might practice and just be shit at it no matter what. But I think if you kept practicing it, you get better at it, and better. And then your enjoyment of it, I think, affects your motivation, and that motivation affects whether or not you're going to practice more, and so it's a vicious cycle. But yeah, that's interesting, man. You've done a mini mind blow on me. Because if I was shown that,
you'd have to be convinced of that, obviously, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I think it would be a retraining of myself. It'd be liberating, honestly. It would be liberating to shed the belief that practice makes the master. Because what it means is, you and I could nip down to the airfield. I could somehow get the keys to a helicopter, and we could go for a fucking fly around. With me flying the fucker. Without years or months of ground school and months of putting in the hours to go and do the practical experience to then gain the mastery of it. Well, it's like the example we used about skateboarding, where, you know, there's a trick called an ollie, and it's like a bunny hop on a bicycle. The ollie is the skateboard and you being able to jump
over stuff
or over nothing. Just jump. It's just, it feels amazing to just ollie, whether you're ollieing over something or whether you're just ollieing over thin air. It's just a cool thing to just
leaving the ground, kind of.
Yeah, leave the ground. Exactly. Some flight.
Get some air.
Yeah, I think that's more from, I think you'd use that expression more if you were on a ramp.
Right.
I don't think you get air ollieing, but there's, I think that sort of separates the skaters from the, well, it used to be we called them posers, but it's so horrible such a horrible thing to, you know, if you want to get on a skateboard, you don't have to have skill at it. No need to be elitist about it. But we certainly were. And so the difference between a skater and, let's just say, a non-skater was if you've mastered ollieing or not. And you just have to show up and do it. You know, I remember learning shove-its. So a shove-it is where you're riding on a skateboard, you kick your back foot and your front foot in opposite directions, and then you jump off the board, but as you're kicking the feet in opposite directions, you are shoving the board, the skateboard, in a 180, and then when you come back down on the board, you do it so that you're timing it, that it's just reached the 180 cycle, and it's now going backwards, but because of inertia, you're moving forwards, the board's moving forwards, and now you're just riding a board that's backwards.
So the board spins in the air, like a helicopter blade.
Like a helicopter blade, sure.
And it's and then whenever you land, your feet are on the opposite sides of the skateboard when it left.
Right. And you're seemingly going backwards in the opposite direction, but you're actually just, the board is flipped. But I remember seeing a shove it done, and then doing it, and just doing it. I didn't have to practice it. I just went, oh, so you do that, you do that. But people fall on their ass and break bones trying to learn how to do a fucking shove it. Because if you don't believe that you're going to land, you don't land. You put one foot off it and you kick the board, and that's the funny thing, is watching people learn how to ollie. You either commit to it and do it, or you're just kicking the board and running away from it, jumping away from it, and it's hilarious to watch it. Maybe that's mean for me to say it's hilarious to watch it, but you can see the level of commitment to just doing it is what makes you do it. I don't know if you can practice just kicking the fucking board and learn how to ollie. You just have to do it. You just have to stomp that back foot, raise that front foot, drag the front foot up the board to then correct it and lift the back end of the board up, and then suddenly you and the board are in air, but you're in contact with the board such that when gravity brings both of you down, you're now landed, and that's an ollie. But it doesn't go that way if you're not doing it. It goes, you kick the board and it goes flying, or you kick the board away from yourself, or you land on your fucking nuts with the nose of your board grinding right up into you. It can go horribly wrong, and maybe it's that fear of it going wrong, or I don't know what it is that makes it so that some people will go and learn how to ollie from watching it on YouTube. I mean, now you can watch shit on YouTube and you can learn how to do anything. I learned how to change the oil on how many different cars by watching a YouTube video of it, getting my head around it, and then just doing it, And I think that might be what you're talking about, is that's not practice makes the master, that's just get on with it. But it's that'd be a pretty fucking amazing reality, man. That's what I think. I think I'd be glad to be proven wrong on that belief.
If you were wrong about it, you would want to know.
I would want to know. I would embrace and rejoice being wrong about my belief. And I part of me wants to say, but I know I'm not wrong. And I think, unfortunately, too many of us say that about a lot of things we believe in. But I'm glad to realize that you asking me that has made me realize I'd be glad to be wrong about this thing. I believe it firmly, and I don't believe it any less firmly now that we've had this conversation. But I realize that I would be so glad to be wrong about that. And I think a lot of things that I believe, I'd be so glad to be proven wrong. I think it's a pretty cool thing that you're walking down and looking at, and I'm definitely curious about it, because there's the change is in the air, one way or the other. Change is in the air, and if it's going to be good change, if it's going to be change that we can do something with, instead of just smash, destroy, and let's see what's left, see where we can buy toilet paper in the end.
We gotta find a better way of talking to each other.
Yeah, very much so. But defensiveness comes up so fucking quickly.
Well, like we were talking before, our culture, and this could be another evolutionary trait, like us and them. Being different means I need to see them as a potential threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to defend myself, or my area, my territory, or my family.
Well, that's got to be part of it, right? Is we've got to be able to see no one as a threat, to then be able to have space and calm around talking about things that are hard to talk about. If I don't see someone as a threat, then I'm not going to feel the need to get defensive. So maybe that's part of how we get there. How we get there is we've got to learn and teach each other how to just feel like no one is a threat. There are no threats. There's just curious people. And people that are struggling, and people that are confused, and people that are trying to do things in ways that we don't understand, they don't understand, but on some level they mean well inside. And that can be accessed.
Do you think that there are no threats?
No, what I'm saying is we need to get to a place where we can confidently feel like there are no one is out to get us. No one is threatening my existence. And that's hard to do because I think people are constantly threatening other people's quality of existence, because to have someone else has to have not in a lot of cases. Unless we come to it with a universal basic income approach of, well, let's all have a base level of existence that we can enjoy, instead of struggling and fucking scraping by to be able to drive to Walmart, to be able to get the things that this family needs that doesn't have. What if we all just fucking could cover those bases, so that the struggle and the fret and the energy wasted in just being able to supply that is taken away. That threat is taken away because you've got your universal basic income.
What would you say to the person that would say something like, well, we need to be challenged, or we need to have threats so that we can strengthen ourselves, be more, it's almost like the antelope that gets away is the strong one because of all of the practice that it's gotten from running away, being able to run away from the tiger, whatever. Like, in other words, the
people aren't going to get strong from handouts, you mean? That kind of argument?
Yeah, what would you say to somebody that would say that as a argument against like a universal basic income or something like that? What would your response be to somebody that responded that way?
I suppose I'd ask them if they'd ever had to live without knowing where the next meal's coming from, and then ask them, can you possibly even imagine what that would be like for a minute? Let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone that doesn't know where the next meal's going to come from. What do you think that would feel like? And then maybe get them to role play a little bit of something that they've never thought about. Never thought about. And then, yeah, come up with some defensive, stupid fucking things, but then you have to calmly lead them through, okay, but what if, and then get them to really try that on for a minute of, so I don't know where the money's coming from for the next meal, to kind of have some empathy, I suppose, to develop a crash course in empathy for people that is a threat, a genuine threat for them.
Well, do you have any other questions for me? I'm going to ask you later if you have anything to promote, or if you want to be found, how people can find you, if some of your work or your art, or if you have an Instagram, or if somebody wanted to find you and they were interested in the kind of stuff that you did, maybe you can share that. But any other questions? Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, on the SE stuff. What's it going to take for you to continue on this and maybe get a presence, to develop some skill and practice at being able to conduct these interviews with people that probably have no interest or minimal interest, or are going to have high levels of resistance to talking to you about shit that they believe in that they're not interested in questioning? What's it going to take for you to continue on this and get to a level of competency and comfort?
Like how could I tell if it's working?
No, what needs to happen next so that you keep going on this journey?
Oh.
And get somewhere with it, or just maybe help someone else get somewhere with it.
I think I'll touch on kind of what you said before, is just practice practice makes the master. I learn something every time that I talk to somebody about something like this. I try to take mental notes so that I learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that if I felt myself become more and more comfortable and have a better flow maybe with it, so that it's a little bit more natural feeling. I try to just kind of weave it into everyday conversations.
Yeah, you kind of have a inquisitive nature in general, I think. So that's great. That's a good foundation for you to build on. Is there a way you could take it to a next level, like maybe go do the man on the street thing and just fall on your fucking face a few times and somehow learn the Socratic, Devatic method of knowing, well, I know that this question and this question and this question lead to peaceful, calm time. You'd have to kind of go trial by fire, wouldn't you? And is that something that you would be willing to take on, to just, you know what, I'm going to go once a week to Evergreen Campus and just start fucking talking to people and recording them. Make the stakes high, not just talking to people, but would you mind talking into the laptop?
Yeah.
Would that be something at the level that you think would be worthwhile taking or would want to take?
I would be interested.
Are you gonna
I
do
think
it?
practicing with people I already have a good rapport with,
Yeah.
so that I can practice a little bit better.
That's safe for you then. Yeah.
It's kind of like getting in the kiddie pool first and testing it out, and I started a private Facebook group.
Okay.
Called Sound Epistemology.
Okay.
Basically, because I'm kind of based near the Puget Sound, and sound epistemology also has, like if your epistemology is sound,
Right.
that means it's valid, or you
It's
have
quite punny, yes.
Yes, yeah. So sound epistemology plus it's SE.
Yeah.
So there's a
I see
lot
what
of
you did
different
there.
layers of. So
So how many members are...
right now, I think I have 28 members.
Okay. And what kind of people are these that are members right now?
These are people that have shown interest in the approach that I've been taking about having chats that I have publicly on my own Facebook profile with other people. So I'll scroll through my feed. Somebody will have a meme or something that they post.
Okay.
And it's basically a statement.
Okay.
It's a belief.
Yeah, the meme is a belief. Okay.
Yes. I will ask them about it.
Yeah.
I'll say, I'm interested in this. Please tell me more. Why do you believe this?
So doing some SE, but on their wall.
Yes, and it's not as good a platform as speaking in like humans, like you and I are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tone that you miss. A lot of people aren't really good at finding as much charity in what the other person said. Sometimes they automatically assume that the way that they're hearing it is the way that the other person intended it.
Right.
And that gets lost in typed, in text.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of challenges with that. But I've been doing it for a while, and people have asked me, they'll send me private messages saying, what's with all these weird questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you're asking questions that I haven't really thought about.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great, man.
I'm, and so I started this private Facebook group,
Yep.
and I went on my public feed and I said, okay, I've been asked a lot of questions about my approach to some of the questions that I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
I started this group. If you're interested in learning how to talk to people and having better conversations about maybe some subjects that are sensitive, and you want to learn ways that you can have these discussions without having a debate, without having to argue, without being irrespectful or impolite or antagonistic, you're welcome. You're welcome to join. And in the group, I'll post different ideas, different ideas about how to maybe talk, like what questions to ask. One of the most recent subjects that I posted was an example of what not to do in a conversation if your goal is to have better conversations.
Mm-hmm.
What not to do is say something like, quote, "See, you just admitted it.
Right.
Therefore, you have less credibility now, or
Mm-hmm.
you have no credibility."
Like, told you so.
Yeah. That would be what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
What a suggestion, what could be done is repeating back what they said. And that has a lot of opportunities in it. If you repeat back what they said, it does a few things. It gives both people the opportunity to check to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. And if I repeat back what you said, or if I rephrase it in my own way, you can tell me if I'm mistaken,
Right.
if I'm not understanding you correctly. So it kind of clarifies things, making sure that you're on the same page. But it also allows the interlocutor, the person being interviewed, a chance to hear out loud what they think from another source. And maybe it's phrased a little bit differently. But it gives them an opportunity to hear what they think out loud.
So did you get some good examples from that? Because when we were doing the role play thing, the Christian, the Islam, the IRA, the Nazi, it seems like that's a great time where where instead of saying, instead of challenging, well, they've got the same doctrine, they've got the same dogma, they've got this.
They have the same verification method.
The same verification method, yeah. It seems like maybe it would be a good idea to go into so what I'm hearing you say
Yes.
is, and then repeat it, and
Exactly.
then take
So
that
what I'm hearing you say is that because John 3:24 says this,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the main reasons why you have this belief.
Mm-hmm.
Am I hearing you correctly? Is this what you're saying? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Give them a chance.
Please
to
correct me if
clarify.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So did you get some good examples, or did you get what kind of a debate happened when you posted that?
No debate.
None.
No debate.
No one's.
People saw it. People liked it.
Yeah. But no, here's an example. There's no active.
There's not a
too
lot
active,
of.
yeah.
I think people are still kind of trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Don't want to seem stupid.
Yeah, and that's another layer of this post that I put up. It gives the person to hear what they said, and they can ask themselves, do I really believe this? I'm hearing this from this other person. It kind of sounds weird. It may not really be what I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they may never admit that they've changed their mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that could change their mind right in front of you
Mm-hmm.
just by hearing what they said. And like I said, they may never admit that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're changing their belief and getting closer to what's likely true, that's a good thing.
But they're at least questioning what they believe. Yeah.
Right.
You planted a seed that might mature into, do my beliefs,
Yeah.
are they worth believing?
Yeah. And it also gives them an escape route. It
An
gives
easy
them a way out,
Yeah.
changing their mind without being exposed,
Mm-hmm.
or being embarrassed.
Yeah, shown up.
So it gives them an escape route, a back door to go to, and if they feel like they have that escape route,
Mm-hmm.
then they're more comfortable maybe opening up and sharing, and therefore examining what 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 they believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of something that I shared on that group
Mhm.
page, that people that are interested
Yeah.
can come in and read stuff like that, and
So far, it's just 28 people reading stuff,
that I post.
clicking a thumbs up, but not really a lot of active debate. I mean, it's
Yeah.
28, so it can't be.
Yeah,
And
and debate
how
is not
far-
what my goal is. Not to have debates
Okay.
with people.
Your goal is like to tweet or do a news headline of, "Hey, have you thought about blah blah?"
Yeah,
like
and if you want
LinkedIn.
to talk about this, share
Yeah.
share if you've had examples like this, or if you have something to add, or where I could be wrong, or where I could be shown a better way.
The lack of participation isn't necessarily failure. It's more, well, now that's out there if people want to look at it. Think
I'd
about
like to
it.
pretend that the less feedback I get, the more they're thinking about it.
Now, what makes you believe that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we learn SE, then the likelihood that we use it on ourselves and
Yeah.
our own belief
Oh yeah.
is more likely to happen.
And maybe that's enough, man. You know, maybe that's enough if just you're starting to look at it, and suddenly you're 28 people. And again, that's the pendulum. You know, that's the difference. Is the not interested to, well, maybe I'm curious about some of the things that I think I believe in and are completely immovable on.
Do you want to believe true things? Is a question that comes up sometimes, because
For you or for epistemologists?
sometimes I have to ask if you're the IL, the interlocutor, and you tell me something like, well, it gives the belief I have, this belief X gives me comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, what's more important, that you have comfort or that you're believing that something that is true? And if they say, well, I would rather be comfortable and believe something that is not true. Well, is believing true things important to you? Do you want to believe true things, or would you rather be comfortable? And some people are completely honest, and they say, I don't care if I'm believing true things. If this gives me comfort, if seeing a butterfly brings me the experience of I'm spending time with my dead grandfather,
Uh-huh.
if that gives me comfort, I would rather believe that my grandfather is still living and is embodied in the butterfly, and I'm having contact with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's more important to me, to have that experience, than for me to believe that my grandfather is dead and I'm never going to see him again.
So I'd rather feel good than be right.
I'd rather feel good than my beliefs lining up with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly okay. But some people don't they've never realized that about themselves.
Yeah.
And is that really the way I want to live life? Do I want to live life believing things that are not true and walking around being comfortable? Or do I want my beliefs, because they do inform our actions, do I want my beliefs to line up with reality?
And that's the epistemology mission statement.
If I'm asking people, if I'm asking somebody questions and they're fine with believing things that are not true,
Mm-hmm.
then I'd rather talk about something else. I'd rather talk about the weather or football or something else, because what they tell me, I'm not going to learn better ways at coming to truth by talking to this particular person, I don't think. I might find out ways that are less reliable.
Would you be open to finding other ways to feel better about life? Like for the person that says, I'd rather feel good than be right.
What? So rephrase the question, or ask it again.
Yeah, so what I was asking is, because you're saying, it sounds like you're saying you can't learn something from someone that's not open to examining whether what they believe to be true or not is true.
You can learn some things, but I don't think they would be a good resource or reliable resource
To teach you something new.
to I don't think they're going to be a reliable source for reliable methods to learn true things, because they don't care. They don't care if they're believing something true. So I'm probably not going to put a lot of value in their verification methods.
Mm-hmm. Also, you're looking for, that's what the epistemology is looking for verification methods.
Reliable ways of finding out true things, or if something is true or not. Epistemology is the study of how do we know what we know. What method are we using to arrive at this conclusion that we think is true? There's a pyramid, and it's kind of like the pyramid, the food pyramid, like we used to have back in the day, with
5 a day.
Sweets at the top with you want the smallest amount,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes dairy, meat, and then down at the bottom used to be like the bread and cereal group.
Mm.
And we were told that
Right.
that's what you want your main nutrition from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has a bigger base at the bottom of the pyramid, so it's more important.
Mm-hmm.
So in this pyramid we have the what, so the belief,
Okay.
at the very top.
That's the least important thing.
Yes. The why
Mm-hmm.
is in the middle.
Okay.
It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more important.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe it? So
Mhm.
the reasons. And then the how is at the very bottom. That's the most important part. And that is, how did you conclude that the reasons are sufficient for having a high level of confidence in the belief?
Okay.
So what, why, how, and the street epistemology approach is focusing on the how did you find that out? How did you determine this? How did you decide that these reasons are sufficient reasons to have a high level of confidence in the belief?
Okay.
That's the focus. I'm less concerned with what the belief is.
Yeah. That's good, because if you can come from a place of not being concerned about what the belief is, you can address some beliefs that are potentially horrific.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it for any belief. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
religious.
Oh
But the higher the confidence that they have in the belief,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
the more interesting the talk is.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, if you can get them to the how, and I think, by the way, that would be a good segue in, is to explain to them, look, here's where I'm coming from. I've got beliefs, they've got beliefs, you've got beliefs. They're important, but for this conversation, let's just have that be the small part at the top of the pyramid. Let's have then the kind of the medium part of that pyramid be why you believe that thing. Let's agree that we're just going to talk about how it is that you know the whys that you use to believe this thing, how you know those are good whys, and to kind of help, because you almost need to give them a crash course in epistemology to then be able to have the conversation with them that opens up a conversation instead of just comes into a fucking argument and them going, well, this is, or them trying to convert you or something. Because I'm sure that would happen with a lot of, if you started to sit down with a, Jehovah's Witness comes to the door, the last thing they're going to do is dig into the how they can measure
They're
what
not
the
trained
whys.
for that. They're trained to give the what.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what's going to, they're trained also to have that conversation go in their direction, not you coming in with epistemology.
Yeah, and that would be a prime golden example of when this approach would be appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did an experiment one time after I had kind
Band camp?
Yeah. I wanted to test how important the what was.
Okay.
And I said, I want to see if I can have a conversation like this and not even know what the what is.
Okay.
So the conversation...
Yeah, because that's the ultimate epistemology, right? Is I don't need to know what the what is.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about how you measure.
And if that's reliable or not.
Yeah.
And if it is, I'll use it. So,
Okay,
and I don't
so,
remember how the conversation started.
Mm-hmm.
I think... if I remember right, they were kind of asking me questions first. And then, when it was time to change roles, I basically said something like, okay, I'm interested in how you go about finding out that the reasons you have for believing something are good reasons.
Okay.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Like, what's your process?
Mm-hmm.
What are the specific steps you're taking when you arrive at a conclusion? What specific steps do you take to verify that the reasons that got you there are sufficient ones? And that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is my method. This is how I make sure that what I'm believing is right, or true, or likely true. So, and it worked. It worked. It's, in this particular case, I didn't even know.
What were the circumstances? Was it a Facebook chat? Was it in person?
It was online. It was an online conversation, yeah, with a stranger.
Like a chat, an immediate thing back and forth, or?
Yeah. Well,
like
it was on a...
I mean, there's no such thing.
It was public.
But like on their wall, or? How quick was the feedback? How quickly did the conversation go? I mean,
it lasted about almost 24 hours.
So the responses weren't immediate.
Right.
Okay.
And that's kind of like during my online conversations, I try to let them know that sometimes it's better to not feel like you have to respond right away.
Yeah.
Sometimes with these kinds of subjects, it's best to give yourself time to think about it.
Yeah.
Collect what you want to say, and then respond. And don't expect an immediate response either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no rush. Think about it.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think. I'm not expecting anything anytime soon.
That's a nice groundwork or a ground rule to lay, especially with a written format.
That's one
like that.
advantage of having an online conversation. You
Yeah.
can have the conversation at your convenience.
You can think on it for a while,
Right.
sit with it,
Right.
then answer instead of just, okay, I've got to...
It's like a built-in pregnant pause.
Right. Do you find that you take yourself a bit more seriously now?
Compared to...
The days of screaming, fire it up in the crowd at Coiler shows.
Do I take myself more seriously? It's possible that I could take myself more seriously, but right now I don't feel like I take myself more seriously now than I ever have, and I hope that I don't take myself more seriously.
You think that's a
If
bad thing?
anything, the trajectory that I would want my seriousness of myself, I want that to be going down as I live. Now,
take
I guess
yourself
we
less
should
seriously.
ask what that means. What does it mean to take for somebody to take themselves more or less seriously? What is that? When
Yeah. So...
I don't feel like, just from the onset of the question,
Mm-hmm.
from my own definition of taking myself seriously, I think it's better for me to not take myself more seriously rather than to take myself more seriously.
Do you take self-growth more seriously?
Self-growth more seriously. I think a better way to say it would be to take it more sincerely. Because serious,
Mm-hmm.
like, am I serious about life?
Right. I'm seriously living it.
Yeah. I take life. I would rather, if I were from the outside and I was looking at me, I think I would rather take my life more sincerely than seriously.
I like that. And are you taking your life more sincerely now, you think, than you were 15 years ago? Or is it all just a big fucking game to you, Tex?
I don't know. I would have to think about that. I would have to take a point in time and somehow figure out how sincerely I took life.
All right, let's take
And
the
then
Fire
take-
Creek Ale House Coiler Show. You and me, the only two pricks standing up at the front with Coiler shirts on, yelling at the top of our voices at the Coiler guys, just trying to get a fucking laugh out of them. Let's take that moment to now.
And do I take my do I take myself more sincerely now?
Yeah. Did you take yourself sincerely back then, I guess would be the start of the question.
I want the answer to be yes. I want the answer to be I did take myself sincerely. And I want the answer to be yes now.
That's fair. Both of those are fair, I think.
Is that the case? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to measure sincerity.
Yeah.
How how could we measure sincerity?
Well, I suppose we could measure it with how much effort we put into improvement, growth. You know, I mentioned one of my core values is growth. I think it always has been on some level. But if I think about how much sincerity I lived my life with in that same instant to now, I want to be jovial about life now. I want to be haphazard, you know, carefree, reckless, just moment to moment. But the difference is now I want to be present with it. Then I thought I just didn't give a fuck. So I don't think I lived with sincerity. I think I lived genuinely, but recklessly, I think. A little recklessly, I mean, come on. Neither you nor I or anyone we've really been in contact with are that reckless. But also not as direly serious as others might be. I enjoy that we were the two loudest fucking idiots in the crowd most of the time.
You don't regret?
I don't regret it at all. I look back and I'm a little embarrassed sometimes. I say embarrassed, maybe that's not the right word. I see people doing that now and I cringe a little bit, thinking that was me in text. But I don't know about you, but I was always a clown in school. I was always just enjoyed getting people to crack up in the most inappropriate points of English class or maths or whatever. And I think that entertainer side of me, that Leo side of me, that part of me that, again, didn't mind standing up in a room full of people just not wanting to get outside their comfort zone, getting up in front of the band and being the first ones dancing or the loudest ones. I enjoyed that. I'm glad that we did that. I'm really glad that we did that. I think you know, some of my most favorite songs are the ones you get to yell to. Oh. I like that. And I like that we did that. Even though I'm sure it was embarrassing as hell for a lot of people that knew us. I'm kind of glad we did that. And I don't know if that meant we were sincere in how we lived our lives, or just more genuine, or just more stupid, or just,
Honest.
Reckless, honest, lots of words, good or bad. I guess I don't really want to put a judgment label on it. I think that's something that I've been wrestling with and trying to raise my awareness of, is just how much I can cast judgment and just how little I now want to. That's good, that's bad. I realize that I am not invested in making those judgment calls anymore, because I don't think I have. I don't really think that serves me. I don't think it serves anyone. You can just bring yourself more pain when you start to categorize, well, that's good, that's bad, that's yes, that's no, that's more, that's less. Or I want more of that, I want less of that. I think we have to be safe, but there's so many little things I've caught myself making judgment calls on, and I'm fucking sick of it. I'm sick of hearing myself make judgment calls about so many things. It just doesn't need my attention. It doesn't need my energy. So I'm really glad to be raising my awareness of that and letting go of that. I don't know if we always had a little bit of that who gives a fuck in us, and that's why we did the way we did and why we are the way we are now.
Can I take us on a little footpath off of that idea?
Sure.
You said you appreciate the fact that you're more aware of those things now, right? You feel like you're more aware.
Yeah, more aware of myself.
You're more aware of yourself.
And more aware of the things I'm carrying around with me. I have made a lot of effort to raise my awareness in the things, the automatic things that I carry around with me and act automatically because of.
What is the you? When you say you or I, when you're talking about yourself,
Yeah.
what when you say I feel aware, what is the I that is feeling awareness? What is that? Can you point to it?
It's hard to point to it. It's hard to, because as soon as you start thinking about it, that's not it.
Right.
It's the observer of that thinking. It's the, I talked about being mindful, being present early on when we're talking, and I can't remember the last 2 hours. I think I glimpsed in and out of feeling present, feeling in my body, feeling anchored and aware of.
It's natural to kind of drift off.
Yeah. It's very much a habit to just drift off. And it's not a bad habit, but I have found that it doesn't serve me very well. It serves me a lot better to not drift off, to stay present.
What is getting served?
What's getting served is
When you say it doesn't serve me,
it doesn't serve me.
what is the what is the me that is getting served?
Oh, I see. Well, I mentioned to you this concept of the pain body that we feed, and in meditation, you are the observer. You're observing, and I think that's the I, that's the self, that's the me. That's what's not being served. Is this very wise, very calm, very patient part of you that is the observer, that is the larger part of you that you don't realize because the ego is so loud and the pain body is so loud that you feel like you get so identified with that that you're not even aware that can just be optional. Feeding your ego could just be optional. I don't have to feel slighted. Like I just learned not long ago that turn the other cheek, I just learned what that means. I never knew what it meant was turn the other cheek so the person can strike you on that cheek as well. I always thought it meant like turn a blind eye. And I thought, what? And my ego said, fuck that, you're not having a second shot, you cunt. And, but that's, and then I sat with it and I thought, okay, so what they're saying is it, be so accepting and so surrender so much that if you're struck, turn the other cheek and allow them to strike the other cheek. I just learned that that's what that means recently. And when I sat with that, I thought, fuck, that would be an amazing way to live your life. To just go, you know what? You're struggling with what you're going through to the point where you feel you have to strike me. Strike me again. Just hit this cheek now. Let it out, man. Experience it.
When you say that you sit with something, what is the thing that is sitting with it?
I think it's like it's a team in there, almost.
Team?
Yeah. Because you've got the mind, and just these thoughts that come and go, and that voice, and then to observe that, you can't, as you're sitting in meditation, you can't say, I am sitting in meditation, because that's thinking. That's the thinker.
Right. Who is the one sitting in meditation?
All of you. The thinker, the pain body, the observer. It's all of you. I don't think the thinker's a bad thing. It's just when we get so identified with it that we can't. I'm starting to realize it's not about turning it off even. It's just about making space for it and taking space. Being aware that there's space around it, instead of fuck me, this is all I've got. I'm trapped in these thoughts. Why can't I get that song out of my head? Being able to realize that, well, there's space here. That it's alright that song is driving me up the fucking wall. There's space here. And leaning into it as well. Especially difficult emotions, sadness, grief, pain.
What is the thing that is experiencing the pain? Is that team you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the team...
How do you tell the difference between the observer and what is being observed? Where is the line that you're saying this is the observer and this is being observed? Do you think those things are different? And if you do, how do you know where to draw the line between the experiencer and the experience?
Well, it's all part of you, I think. It's all got its place. And it's yeah, I mean, I guess there's I don't know the language to describe I've never been religious. I don't know a shitload about Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. I don't know a lot about the texts, about you talked about the Krishna text, you talked about the Christian text, and I know the Joseph Campbell stuff. I know the Carl Jung way of looking at things and describing things, and so for me it's more a feeling. It's that calm or that at ease versus unease. Because when I'm wrestling or trying to resist the thinking, the constant thinking, the song that won't stop looping itself.
What is it that is noticing this?
Yeah, and that's the part of me that's aware. And I don't know how to describe that part. I don't know how to describe the thing that can sense the fire. I don't know what that... I mean, it's me. I know it's part of me. I think it's a lot larger.
Where does that me end? And the experience that the me is experiencing begin?
Yeah. Well, I think you're part of it. But then obviously your experiencing of it ends pretty differently. You have no idea what I'm experiencing, but you're part of what I'm experiencing. And actively, passively, with good intention, with bad intention, when I'm by myself, there's a different reality, a different experience that's happening than when you and I are in communion, or in each other's presence. And I think that's true with every single person you come in contact with. So there's a shared part of it. There's definitely a shared influence.
Parts, like... Because when I think of parts, I think of this piece is this own thing, and this part is this own
Yeah,
thing.
I guess I mean aspects, not parts,
Yeah.
Aspects.
Aspects, like ideas, like...
Well, not even ideas, but categories or themes or... Yeah.
What's the difference between you... What's the difference between you and your ideas? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I have my ideas.
You have your ideas. Your ideas are over here, and you, the you that you say you are having these ideas.
No, I think they're not over there. They're part of me.
Okay.
Where they're coming from is anyone's guess. Probably from a source larger than me. And some from a neurotic part of me that won't get outside of myself. But they're spinning around inside the me.
What is not you?
What is not me? Your perception is not me.
My perception,
Your perspective, yeah.
my perspective is not you.
That's uniquely you. That's something that it doesn't matter what I say or do, I'm never going to have an impact on it, good or bad. It might seem like that, but at the end of the day, it's all you making the choice about your perception of me. You come to the table with prejudices, with assumptions, with pedestals to put people on, good feelings, bad feelings, and by feelings I mean kind of wavelengths. Oh, I'm attracted to this, or I'm repelled by that. Like the values we talked about, when your core values are in alignment, and when they're out of alignment, you kind of naturally feel a resistance or a repelling away from someone. So that's outside of me.
Where do you end and I begin?
Yeah. I think I want to answer that by just declaring that we're connected. All of us are connected in ways that we I don't know that any of us understand, but there's absolutely no way to get around the fact that we are connected. We are influencing each other's existence, and
is there a line that you can point to that tells you this is me and this is not me anymore? Where is that line, and can you define it?
Well, I can, from having sat in meditation, and it's almost kind of an energy awareness. I know that if you start yelling and screaming at me, that I have the choice to let it in, or I have the choice to just safely filter. I don't want to hear yelling. Some people don't mind it. I don't want to hear yelling. Or I don't want to be around yelling. But there's a way to be around yelling without having it come into your sphere. And so I think of it as like a sphere, like an aura, like a filter.
Why is my yelling not you?
It might be me. I can't say it's not me. But I can say that I choose whether or not to let it in. To let it affect me, or to to be able to accept it or not, I suppose. I can resist it, say stop fucking yelling. I can try and overpower you to stop you yelling. I can try and meet your yelling. I can try and, oh, I understand, try and kiss it, make it better kind of fucking thing. I can try and empathize. I can all sorts of different things that can resist it. But if I can learn to accept, if I can just accept it and let it happen, it doesn't even have to impact me. It doesn't even have to affect me. It's just how you're choosing to express yourself, which is a lot easier said than done. But again, it comes back to feeling like there is no threat. If I know you're yelling your ass off, but there's no threat to me, I can accept any amount of yelling. But if I feel there's a threat to me, it's going to be hard for me to accept any amount of yelling. And I think you're right, that part of that is examining, well, where does the you and the me end?
Well, do you want to promote anything?
Yeah, I
think
think
you have a book coming out, or
yeah. So my third novel is.
Where can people find you if they want to find you and you want to share stuff?
Yeah. So I think I'd like to find people to collaborate with, and I'm a cinematographer, videographer, so I make film. I light scenes, I shoot scenes, I break scripts down into storyboards and shot lists, and then we film those things. And I would love to find people to collaborate with. I'd love to find paying opportunities. I'm self-employed. But I also, the right projects, are worth spending time and energy on for less money than maybe full day rate. So people can find me on youtube.com/Rupert Wild. People could direct message me on Instagram at Rupert Victor Wild. And or people could reach out to you and say, hey, how do I get a hold of Rupert? And you could maybe email me at rupertwild@gmail. And work on something. Collaborate.
Do you have any last thoughts that you want the world to know?
I don't think the world really needs to know my thoughts. I think I would love to see us all be more compassionate, but I don't think I need to ask people to be compassionate. I think I need to just be it. So I'm just going to focus on that. I'm just going to up my compassion and really stop getting in my own fucking way. And I'm sure a lot of other people's way. I just hope that people are thinking about those things as well for themselves. And I hope people realize that it's all going to be okay.
Well, I really want to thank you coming on. For our audience, if you notice that the audio is maybe a little bit better this time, I definitely want to give Rupert all the credit for that. Been learning a lot about mic setup and inputs and all of the things.
Omnidirectional mics.
Omnidirectional, how not to set it
cardioid
up.
patterns.
Yeah. So, props for you for
Glad to help, man.
for helping the Libby Road podcast with stuff like that. It's only going to get better from here, I believe.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think you're onto a good path with what you're trying to explore, and I like that you've got the question set. I'd like to see that question set. I think it's like a comedian set, they got certain material they run with, try it out, they bomb, they kill, they bring it along to the next one with them. And I think I'd love to see you figure out this base set of questions and then develop your chops at figuring out ways to ask people that totally disarm them, totally create a space of safety for them, and really get more and more challenging, seemingly challenging individuals in front of you to start talking to them about their how. And get people thinking, man. We've got to get people thinking right now and not freaking the fuck out. Because it's easy to freak out, it's easy to point fingers, but it's so much better to just look inside. So I'm glad that that's a big part of your work here. Good on you, mate.
Thanks again to Rupert Wild for coming on the podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes. Today's music is brought to us by @DJ_BrownNote. You can find @DJ_BrownNote on Twitter, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Just search @DJ_BrownNote.